so much potential in the country, and they're the majority, but how much of a role are they playing when it comes to leadership, stepping up to leadership roles, influencing leadership in the country as well? That's what we're focusing on tonight on Monday Special. I'll introduce you to my panelists now. On my far right, we have Juliana Olayo. She's a youth delegate. And of course, right next to her, we have Mirimo Nyongesa. He's a student leader at the University of Nairobi. So both of them are youth leaders in their own respect. And right next to me on my left, we have Stephen Nganga, who is a youth mentor based at the Strathmore University. Thank you all so much for joining us. Let me start with the two of you. There seems to be a problem with the quality of leaders, or so young people say, that are voted into office. Do the youth know why they vote? Are they interested in the reasons that they vote, or do you just kind of wait for the same cycle of people, sit back, continue to complain? How much of a role do you play when it comes to influencing the vote? Very briefly, let's start with you, Mirimo.
What I can say, trying to quote Roger Hart. Roger Hart once said that there are 3 stages of democracy with regard to the youth. There is this first stage of manipulation, where the youth take part in democracy by they participate over something they don't know, they have no clue about. And then we have the second stage of decoration, where the youth just put on t-shirts and caps and they dance and they clap. And then over a ceremony that still they have no clue about, and possibly go home when they are happy because they've been given, because of that t-shirt and a little stipend, maybe a fare. And then we have the third stage called informed and consulted and informed stage, which unfortunately is not in Africa. That happens in the West. So
where there's like civic education.
Yeah, civic education, they participate in what they know. So in Kenya, the most popular is the second one, decoration, where they put on those flamboyant t-shirts and all that, and then they hail their demigods. Okay,
so for you, they just kind of do it for the sake of doing it. They don't really understand.
Yeah, they don't really understand.
Okay, that's your point. Juliana, do you agree with that?
I would agree. Actually, I would add on it, because what we are lacking is civic education, for sure, because way back it was the government's responsibility to ensure that before any election is done, a lot of money should be going to civic education, to know the good qualities of a leader, to know what is expected even of the voter, and even as a youth, what to look for, what to expect on the leaders that you expect to represent you either in Parliament or even at the Senate. But it's like the more years are moving, we're actually losing it. So I think civic education is...
I'll come to you just now, Stephen, and hold that thought, because I'll ask another question as well. The two of you are in leadership. You're in youth leadership. You know, you talk to young people, probably influence decisions where you are. Do you think it's fruitful for you? For example, you're a student leader. You know, you've already talked about the fact that for a lot of them it's decoration and it's just about being seen, dancing, etc. How do people respond to you when you're trying to convince them to participate in politics? What do they say to you?
From the experience I've had, especially in campus politics at the University of Nairobi, you find that the structures in place trying to maybe that should mentor the youth, or maybe instill the democracy that we expect, are also skewed. See, so trying to, for example, to interpret spirit of the Constitution, you find that some articles in the Constitution that cite the youth as marginalized groups, while the youths are actually the majority in this nation. So a youth or a young man or a young woman grows up knowing that I'm marginalized with that inferior spirit, so they don't
participate
in what they should be living there, still inferior, they are not yet there.
Okay. All right. You want to add on that?
Yeah, I think more needs to be done. More needs to be done, because
what more though?
The challenges that we go through, for example, if like me, I'm a delegate in Nairobi, and we have 17 constituencies, right? And you find that if I want to do something in Embakasi West, you find if I have a leader who's there that is not youth friendly, would not be able to contribute to making the youth wiser. So you find in 17 constituencies, I want to do it, I can't make it alone, so it will slow my pace. So I feel if every member of parliament would take it as a role, and it is like a side-to-side approach. It's a responsibility of the youth, of the church leaders, of the parents. It's supposed to be collective for it to work.
All right, you wanted to respond earlier.
I wanted to ask her this question. When you say that civic education has not been sufficiently covered, yet if you look at the school calendar, school curriculum, has plenty of that. Where is the missing gap? Where is the missing gap?
I really doubt. I think it's just on paper, because actually we are leaders that are on the ground. Believe you me, if I tell you today that...
What is the exact thing that is on the ground that relates to civic education?
On the ground, I think everyone has forgotten their responsibility. Yes?
She'll finish and then you'll add your point.
Everyone has forgotten their responsibilities, as I said. You find there's someone who's been taken in, and this is what I'm telling you that is on the ground at the grassroots level. An officer is taken to do civic education. When he comes there without supervision, and even no one is bothering to follow up on how it's working, and lack of partnerships with the youth that are there. Like for me in my area, if you come there and want to work with me, I'd be able to tell you this is what is lacking, this is why people are getting bribed, so these are the topics you need. But when you come at the last minute and come with a curriculum and say, today this is happening, definitely at the end of the day it's not going to work.
So it's there, but it's just not getting to the ground as it should.
It's there on plastic.
All right, you wanted to respond to that as well?
Yeah, to respond to when you're saying that the education system really provides the much needed civic education with regard to youth leadership. I want to tell you, you'll be taught that in class. We're not coming to the ground. The same people who are expected to mentor the youth. For example, you have heard of Sonu politics and how nasty they get. So these politicians, the politicians, the national politicians, are the same people who have infiltrated the campus politics. In that, as per now, you cannot contest for any position, even the smallest, or even congressman, whereby you just need to head maybe a few group of people, you sleep in the same hostel, without money, they'll come for you. Right now I'm vying for Secretary General in Sonu, but I cannot stay in school. I'm staying outside.
I'd like to bring you into that. Thanks for raising that point. You know, other than a lot of the other things they're raising, one is that the well-being of young people is just not included in the leadership that is out there now. Is there any way to correct this? First, do you agree with what they're saying? Have you seen it when you're interacting with young people?
Let me put it this way. I'm not ignoring your question, but let me take you back one step back to the question that you addressed to them. One, I want to say that the challenge of leadership in this country, which they are alluding to, is a lack of example, model. We don't have a model politician. Because when you say that the young people are not engaged in politics, I mean engaged in a sensible manner, they don't have anyone to look up to. So that is a failure in the society right from home all the way. Because then the concept of leadership is misplaced. Why would a leader be a demagogue, I mean, or a sort of a god? It's because the notion that we have created in this country of a leader is a person who embodies no values at all. And therefore, the young cannot participate in that because they see, I don't have what this fellow has. So I can only worship him until I get those issues. So we fail at example. So there's no model. Our education system does not prepare us sufficiently enough to understand what is my civic responsibility, what is my civic role, and how is my civic role anchored in this process, and how do I demand responsibility? Because the other thing is that our leaders are not responsible. Have you ever seen anyone coming on TV or radio and apologize and say, look, I'm sorry Kenyans, I promised to do this, it didn't work out because of ABCD, I take the blame? Because that's the hallmark of leadership. And then lastly, which is always lacking, is that for you to have example, you need service. So we don't have servants. We have bullies. I mean, every time I'm on the highway and a particular leader is passing, and because there's traffic and the police come and they're pushing everybody on the road, these are bullies. And therefore they give the wrong image of what leadership is. Leadership is servanthood, is to serve. And if I'm going to serve, it means if I have that early appointment, I better wake up early.
Then let me throw a question at you that I'll then bring back to the two of you. You interact with young people often. Some may say this can be undone. We can begin to check these habits. We can begin to shape the leadership we want to see. How do you think we can go about doing that? Given how jaded young people are, frustrated, he's talked about the fact that many of them participate just for color. You know, she's talked about lack of civic education. How do we begin to reverse this because it's so ingrained in a lot of young people?
It is possible. Let's not lose hope. It is possible to change. One is how we run our institutions. How we run our institutions is very important. What sort of education practice, and to keep in mind that the young people learn by seeing. The greatest teaching points for any young person is seeing, is what they see. So if they come to an institution and we're telling them we have a spirit of service, and they see that the top leader in that institution is a servant, like the Marines in the United States, the Marines, the top layer of the Marines are the last ones to serve in their party, in their mess, because they want the young ones, the people in the lower ranks, to serve first. Now, if you have that idea exemplified and lived in an institution, then it is possible to do it. So it is possible that we can create institutions that bring this out, and this has to be seen in all corners. So that when I'm giving that example of the highway, that is a place where leaders can show an example. And young people are very quick to see that, that fellow is acting different. And if it's authentic, they will follow it. They will take it.
Yeah, I think what I can say is this is a great panel. Actually, I can even talk to the youth themselves. Because at the end of the day, the more we are followers, the more we follow things that we cannot see from the front. So that by the time you're coming to realize, oh, you've already fallen in the hole. So I think we should stop being followers and become doers, doers of the word of responsibility. Learn that if this leader wants to become an MP, what are the leadership qualities that someone should have? Do your homework, because at the end of the day, even it saddens me that the same people, like even right now on social media, you find people that were very sober 4 years ago, automatically have gone berserk. You're like, okay, these people have already divided themselves into crews. You find someone who is very wise, someone is learned, but at the end of the day, following someone who does not have an idea what leadership is all about. So I just think that the youth should sit back and realize that at the end of the day, the little pocket change they're getting is nothing worth their peace, nothing worth their what they should expect from servants. At the end of the day, the Constitution says that a leader should be a servant. Oh my goodness, that's not what we are seeing, especially on TV daily.
But what do you do with a hungry young man, has no job, and is given
and that's actually shillings? What I was going to ask.
What do you do with him?
I think the question, and you've raised really valid points about following from, being the leader and not following. But how do you convince someone who, is sleeping hungry, someone who is not convinced that the leadership is for them? I'll come to you with that just now, Mirimo, but let me hear your thoughts on that.
For me, this is what I say. I meet these people and I sit with them on a daily basis. On a daily basis, I sit with youth that have actually lost hope and have nothing to do because they're being harassed by the leadership that is there. Believe you me, there is no shortcut. Every other time that is electioneering period, if you have the right member of parliament in your constituency, you'd be able to approach this person and talk to him about even capital for a business. You'd be able to talk to them because at the end of the day, like the youth, people are talking of loans, 30% procurement, all these are stories. Because I go get a loan from Equity Bank, the next minute I'm given the money, I service a tender, let's say, the next minute I'm on CRB because my payments are late. So at the end of the day, I guess we have to go for the right leadership.
Yeah.
It is the only thing that can give hope back to those that even do not have.
I'd like to bring in Mirimo, and you're on campus, so you know you're dealing with people who, once they graduate, they're going out into the world, and they can take positions of leadership, or they can end up being the people who, for lack of a better word, fail in society just based on following the wrong examples. How can you convince your classmates, your schoolmates, people you're with, that they can be the change they want to see? Because I'm sure a lot of them are like, you know what, I just want to graduate, do my hustle, and not really bother about leadership. How can you convince them that they need to start thinking about leadership as opposed to waiting to constantly complain about the same cycle of leaders?
Actually, that's what I've been doing. But people have this perception, especially in campus, they try to differentiate leadership and politics. So trust me, in campus, we have leaders, but corporate leaders. Most of them head into the corporate world. And then in politics, again, it's just another concept. So the politics of decoration I was talking about start in campus. So when you hear Babu Wino chanting, Tibim, comrades, and then, as in, that's what he tries to instill in this first year, has just come in, giving all sorts of uncensored slogans. So when he gets out there, because when he was in first year he met the same things, he has gone through the same system, he's going out chanting the same slogans to even the residents of Embakasi East. So you can imagine what's really boiling down.
Is this something that you're trying to fight, not necessarily the individual? Are you as Mirimo trying to fight this?
And that's the resistance.
Are you trying to fight this culture? And that's
the resistance I'm meeting on the ground. That's the resistance I'm meeting.
Because more people would rather go the other route.
Yeah, they want to decorate. So
we need to undo the decorating mentality.
Yeah. So
we're pretty much out of time, but let me let you finish your point.
Let's finish.
Yeah.
So what I can tell youths of the day and the government of the day, the situation in Syria now, they didn't just come in 24 hours or a fortnight. The situation in Syria started when the president or the government of the day neglected these desperate youth. So when you forget the youth or the youths, and then it reaches a time that they feel they need to get the resources that they have really worked for, and then that's what turns out. So I won't be surprised. I'm not really praying for this, but I won't be surprised considering what has happened from 2007 up to now. The unemployment rates are really soaring high. So 2017 we really need to be careful. We really need to be careful. Let's empower the youths, socioeconomically, politically. Okay. Let's just empower the youths.
All right.
Yeah, that's what I can say.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. I just want to give you a chance very briefly to wind up. They've both spoken very passionately, and I think it's a refreshing, group of people who are trying to fight the culture that we're seeing all around us. He fears that young people, could be forced and pushed into a corner and just kind of explode. So there's a young person maybe watching this right now, and they're thinking, look, you know what, politics isn't for me, or they're so frustrated with the leadership. How would you want to talk to them to start undoing that thinking and start moving to the culture of wanting to set an example?
I would say a few things. One, we need to get our young people to engage in critical thought, to ask critical questions. So when you see someone doing something or arguing for a particular point, ask yourself, what is he not saying, or what is he not presenting? So criticality is of essence. Second thing is to know that all the youth are connected at one point by 3 or 4 issues. One is hope, because they're young, they are the future of the country, so they are all hopeful for something. They all want economic empowerment, so they want to have a job, they want to do something. So these two realities are at the heart of them, and therefore if they are critical enough to look at their hope from a long-term perspective as opposed to a short-term gain that is there. Then thirdly, of course, we all are skeptic about the way the nature of our politics is playing, but we still have to keep trying to identify the persons who are there, who are fairly sensible, I wouldn't say fully sensible, but fairly sensible, and try and keep voting, because slowly with time we have to change the tide. The tide will change, but it changes with people participating. But then lastly, also on the society itself, we need to look at what we are putting out there as leader. What is a leader? And this notion of servant or magnanimity on one hand, and on the other hand is a responsibility. Because those two realities, if they are constantly missing, then we end up disenfranchising the youth, disenfranchising the women, and disenfranchising the whole communities. Okay. Because if the leaders are not servants, and they are not responsible, they cannot take responsibility for what they do, then they destroy the very essence of what leadership is all about, okay, and kill the participation.
All right, we'll have to end it there. Certainly something we can discuss for a long time and at length, and hopefully we will be going back to that. Stephen Nyanga, Youth Mentor, Strathmore University; Mirimo Nyongesa, Student Leader, University of Nairobi; and Juliana Olayo, Youth Delegate. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Thank you for your passion, and I hope you'll continue with that passion, because it will definitely amount to something at the end. But we have to end the discussion there. The hashtag is Monday Special K on Twitter. Text us on 224